Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Kalayim, Yerushalmi Kalayim, Pedig Ches, Halacha Aleph. We're learning today Daf Samach Tes. We left off on Daf Samach Tes, Amud Aleph Mamish, on the top of the Amid. We had the machlokes between Rabbi Yoshia and Rabbi Yonason, and the Gemara now will begin. Today's Daf will begin with, let's say, us tying up all of the loose ends. Bishitas Rabbi Yonason, there's going to be a lot of nuance in the way we will be able to learn different options the first couple of lines until the two dots. But we'll get through that. The Gemara is going to tell us that seeds of trees, as we learned many times, are not subject to the prohibition of kalayim. We have to always remember that. Even midrabanan, right? There is an issue always of grafting, but seeds of trees are not included. The only exception will be the grape seed. You can argue that a vine is a tree, zolzain, and that will be the great exception. In other words, when the Torah uses the word loy sizra, right, sowing, by kalayim, the word sizra excludes the tree seeds. But we have to know that in contrast, and another topic in the Torah, Pasha Shemini, when we're speaking about hechsher zeroyim, that all seeds, which include all fruits and all foods, that have to become wetted after they are disconnected from the ground, and if not, they are not muksher l'kabel tuma. By hechsher zeroyim, the word tizra includes the seeds of trees, and the Gemara is going to actually ask why is that, and the Gemara will show us how the context in the Chumash, or how extra words in the Chumash will change the meaning of a word. That will be the first topic today. Now, we just learned on Daf Samach Zayin Amud Beis. We learned that we had a brayso, and the Gemara introduced to us a machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim, whether one will be chayiv malchus for maintaining kalayim, and we spoke about a lav she'ein boi maisa. The Gemara actually came to the conclusion on Daf Samach Zayin Amud Beis that even the Chachamim that hold that as the rule, lav she'ein boi maisa, you're not going to get malchus. So just maintaining kalayim, you know that it's there, and you left it there, and you're negligent, but you're not doing anything. You should uproot it, but you don't. The Gemara there concluded that even the Chachamim will be moida, that if a person will cover kalayim with earth, which will somehow promote its growth, even the Chachamim, since you did a maisa, you'll be chayiv malchus for maintaining, for being mekayim kalayim. That was the maskana there. The Gemara and Daf Samach Tes will have a very different understanding of this whole topic. Actually, the Gemara is going to insist, dafka, not the way we learned above. The Gemara is going to insist that, yes, if one is going to cover seeds that are mixed on the ground, they'll be chayiv malchus for the lav of planting kalayim, of sowing. In other words, planting doesn't only mean to take two seeds that were never in the ground and to place them in the ground together or within 6 tfachim, but actually any action that promotes the growth of that which is already in the ground is included in the lav of planting. And the Gemara is going to bring a proof from a Mishnah that we have in Masechta Makis. There the Mishnah gives a case where a person can plow only one furrow, one plow, and it'll be chayiv 8 sets of malchus for violating 8 different lavin, as we'll we'll chazer over that Mishnah. And one of them will be the issue of kalayim, and that will be dafka connected to seeding, to planting, and not to maintaining. Now that will lead us into another of the 8 lavin in the Mishnah of Makis, is that if a person plowed kalayim on the Shemitah year, and we're going to be discussing, and actually we're going to come at the end of today's daf to our machlokes amoraim, and we're going to continue tomorrow from this machlokes amoraim, not concerning kalayim, but concerning Shemitah. Is there an isur midoraisa? Or let me say better, will you get malchus for plowing on the Shemitah year? The Torah explicitly says not to seed and not to prune, leisizra and leisizmoid. That's what the Torah says in the Lavin. What not to do, for which you chayiv malchus. Yeah, no, the Torah says that that the land should rest, which is a very general statement, and anything that is against the resting is in violation of a mitzvah sasei. But for that, you don't get malchus. And really, the question, the machlokes amoraim, whether you'll be chayiv malchus for plowing or not, will have to do with a contradiction between the 8th rule of Rabbi Shmuel Omer that we say every morning of the Yud Gimel Midos and that is that kol davar shoyu b'chlol the yotza min haklol lelamed loy lelamed alatzma yotza elo lelamed ala klol kula yotza. We'll see how that applies to this topic. Versus another big rule, and let's use these words that shnei ksuvim haboim ke'echad ein melamdim. And that's enough of words for this because we have to really dive into it. And again, it's going to be an honor of Kaven, really a kachin daf, because it's all about psukim and how to interpret psukim and how to put together these klala, which is fantastic. And let's begin. Daf samach tes amud aleph all the way on the top. According to the Tana Rabbi Yoshia, when are you going to be chayiv malchus? By planting kilayim kilei hakerem, when you have 3 seeds, a chartzon seed, which is a grape seed, and 2 other seeds that are independently kilayim. When you plant them all together, that is when you're going to be chayiv malchus for planting kilei hakerem. And according to Rabbi Yonason, absolutely not. If you have 2 seeds, that's already prohibited. Why would the Torah even mention adding a grape seed? The Torah, the chiddush of the isur of kilei hakerem is that if you have even only 1 foreign seed together with 1 grape seed, they themselves make kilayim. That is the opinion of Rabbi Yonason. And now the Gemara is going to ask, there's going to be different ways of understanding the kasha and the answer, many different ways. So let's begin. Al dati the Rabbi Yonason, that's just mirroring the lashon of the Yerushalmi that we had yesterday. Al dati the Rabbi Yoshia. We have a problem. We have a challenge because it says, and we're quoting the pasuk in Parshas Kedoshim. In other words, what do we see from over here? That, listen to the word, that the word kilayim, what does the word kilayim mean? So Targum Yonason says, taroivis. We know from Parshas Kedoshim that the word kilayim is in reference to the prohibition of planting 2 different seeds together. Clearly, right? That's Parshas Kedoshim, not kilei hakerem. Stam kilayim. What's kilayim? 2 different types that are being planted together. So the kasha now is you, Rabbi Yonason, who hold that when it comes to kilei hakerem, it's the similar prohibition. You can't plant 2 seeds, 1 grain or one vegetable together with a grape seed. So one way of understanding the kasha is, why did the Torah have to use the word kilayim? Why would it not be enough to say according to Rabbi Yoshia, that's not a kasha. Why not? Because Rabbi Yoshia is insisting, Adarabba, what is the lav in Parshas Kiseitze regarding kilei hakerem? Don't take kilayim, as we learned in Kedoshim. Kilayim is 2 other foreign seeds, and don't plant it in the vineyard. The Torah has to say the word kilayim. Dafka to teach you that the isur is, even though there's already an isur of planting kilayim by themselves, you can't plant 2 foreign seeds by themselves. In addition, the Torah gives another law. Don't take that prohibition and add to it a grape seed. So that makes sense. Dafka, the word kilayim. According to Rabbi Yonason, all the Torah needed to say is lo yisizra karmecha. Guys, this is only one of the many ways. If you're going to look, you're going to see the Rashirilio learns one way, the Pnei Moshe learns another way. Okay. So answers the Gemara. Just like we learned a statement in the name of Rabbi Hila, and as they write in the Noise Kalim, no one knows where he said it. But now we know from here that he made a statement elsewhere that an or hun the at amar loy amrat lama at amar, which is that whenever the Torah has a novelty, and the Torah is repeating a halacha because of a novelty, you can't ask, why does the Torah also repeat the details that we already know? That's one way of learning it. Here also, you're right. The Torah did not need to write the word kalayim because we already know that the word kalayim means a mixture of 2 different seeds. And if the Torah would have written loisizra karmecha, and I would have known that if someone violates that, the name of that planting is kalayim. I know that. The Torah, like Rabbi Yonason holds, needed to tell you the chiddush that you can't plant a foreign seed with a grape seed. That's a novelty. There is something new. Parshas Kedoshim, the Torah spoke about don't plant two different types of grains, two different types of vegetables, a grain and a vegetable. That we have over there in Kedoshim. I would never have known from over there that you can't plant once wheat with a grapeseed. That's a chiddush. Why is that a chiddush? Because kalayim is never with trees. Kalayim is not with trees. Here, there's a big exception. So the reason why the Torah has to tell you, that's the whole Rabbi Yonasan, not like Rabbi Yoshia. There's a novelty that even though generally trees, I am allowed to plant with grain, I can plant trees with legumes, I can plant trees with vegetables. No, but a grapeseed is different. Since the Torah is telling you this new din of kilei akenim, the Torah can say the word kalayim. And the general rule is that there are many mitzvahs that are repeated in the Torah. They're never superfluous. Every time it's repeated, it's coming to add another nuance. That's the general rapina, the way we're learning it. But when the Torah is adding a new nuance, a new detail, you can't ask, why did you repeat everything else? The Torah is repeating a general rule and adding something new. I already know what the word kalayim means. You're right. The Torah is saying, that the word kalayim, that I know what it means, is referring also over here to a karmacha. Another explanation, again, this is all based on the premise. We're going with one mahalach. That the Gemara's kasha, Rabbi Yonasan, is that why did the Torah have to say in kisei to the word kalayim? I want you to know that we already had on other approaches above, that the Torah uses the words kalayim to tell you can't be mekayim. We already had that before. Anyways, kalayim means ikar karmacha. Kalayim leisizra. Why did the Torah say the word kalayim? Actually, to tell you something else. That without the Torah writing the words kalayim, if the Torah would have says leisizra karmacha, this is gavaldik. You know what you would have misunderstood to think? That when you already have a vineyard, you have a karmacha, don't introduce a seed from something else in your already standing vineyard. But you wouldn't have known that the Torah is not allowing you to plant a grape seed and any other seed from the outset. That would have been the misunderstanding if the Torah wouldn't have written the word kalayim. Gavaldik. And enochanami, you should be wondering, the Torah could have said that leisizra karmacha. Why did the Torah say leisizra karmacha kalayim? To tell you that adarab, the opposite, that the Torah, the law for which you're going to be chayiv malchus, is not when you are introducing a foreign seed in a already standing vineyard. That when you begin to plant a vineyard, when you begin to plant a chatzon, don't plant it together with a foreign seed. That's gaval. And actually, look inside the Pnei Moshe, the last narrow line.
Rabbi, excuse me. Something else is not kilayim. I'm sorry, I don't understand this. When you said don't use a sadcha with something else is kilayim.
Yakir, what happens if think about the words? Don't plant a zera. Zera means wheat. Zera means vegetables. In the kedem. If you would have those words, you would mamash make a mistake. You would think that when are you chayiv malchus, when you have a kedem, and now you are introducing a foreign seed, according to Rabbi Yonasan, even only one, you're chayiv malchus. That's not true. Because actually, when you're chayiv malchus, when you plant the chartzon, when you begin planting the kerem, that is where, if you add an extra seed, you'll be chayiv malchus. Let's read inside the Pnei Moshe. The ball lamdeinu, again, we're going with the pshat that the word kalayim is extra. The beikar kerem dafke. It's mamash the opposite. If you already have a kerem, and now you are introducing a foreign seed, you're violating. You're not going to be chayiv malchus. Asur means midairaisa, and if you did it, you're going to make it asur bahana umiskadesh. Yikomakim ein aloika ella al ikar kerem. I was happy when I was preparing yesterday just for this. Now it's clear. And the Rambam also paskins that way. The Rambam happens to paskin that you get malchus like Rabbi Yoshi. In other words, everything that we know is okay. Don't get nervous. We're not changing everything. Once you have a vineyard, you're not allowed to introduce foreign seed. And if you did that, B'toich Daladamis, not only is it Asur, but Asur Miskadish. We're focusing on Malchus. Malchus is when you violate a explicit law. The law of Kilei Akerem is in Pashas Kiseitze. According to Rabbi Yonason, it's Masuk Midvash. The Torah, according to Rabbi Yosha, like you can even ask where did he get it from? Because according to Rabbi Yosha, means don't take kalayim, which is two different foreign seeds, and don't plant it in your kedem. Chita v'sa'ira v'chartzim. According to Rabbi Yonason, taka kalayim is extra. So it's coming to teach you a big chiddush. That's what Rabbi Zajac is saying. That when you chayiv malchus, only if you begin the process together. Once you already have a vineyard, even though Hashem does not allow you to plant not even one seed, not even b'toich daladamas, forget about 6 tvachim, that's not the love of this pasuk. It's only the iker karmocha. Okay. Now we go back. Rabbi Yudan Kaputkiya asked in front of the Amoira Rabbi Yosef. Now, when he asked a question, he was not learning Mesechtes Kalayim. He was learning Mesechtes Machshirin. I'm saying those words because the words Taman and Hacha, there and here, there, when we're learning Kalayim, the topic that we're going to introduce now should be the there. But actually, he's calling that the here. You just see that he was learning the Gemara who compiled, took a topic that was being discussed when they were learning the dinim of Hechsher Zeraim that we just learned. Hechsher Zeraim is the simple rule that even if you have a source of Tumah, as an example, which the Torah uses this for the example, any of the dead Shmoyne Shiratzim that impart Tumah and they have contact, halachic contact with food, when will the food acquire Tumah? Only if prior to the contact it became Muksher Lakabal Tumah. And Muksher means two things. Number one, physically it had contact with water. Number two, that there was a contentment by the owner that it got wet. Versus if the owner did not want it to get wet, then it won't become muksher. And once that happened, even if the water was completely dried off the food item, it's still already forever muksher l'kabel tum. So when they were learning that topic, that was the here, and kalayim is the there. So Rabbi Yudan Kaputke asking for Rabbi Yossi, Taman over there, which means over here, by kalayim, that ain't zari ilan kuroim zeroim. In other words, when the Torah says in Parshas Kedoshim, Satcha loy sizra kalayim, does not sizra dafka doesn't mean seeds of trees. The chiddush is the exception is the vine. But over here, meaning in Hechsher Zeroim Atamar, that zari ilan kuroim zeroim, that's a problem. And why is that? And I want you to know that with the Gemara is not only asking why is it that the fruit of trees also need to become muksher. If not, they won't acquire tumah. The seeds themselves, seeds of trees, if they have contact with tumah, if they were not made wet, they will also not become tummy. Clearly, the dinim of hechsher includes, now the words that the Torah uses in Parsha Shemini is zera. So zera, why is it that in hechsher zeroim the word zera includes seeds of trees and its fruits? And over here, in Kalayim, it dafka excludes trees. So Amalei, so Rabbi Yossi responded in front of Rabbi Yudan Kaputkiya. I'll tell you what. Come on, over there, meaning here by Kalayim. It's amazing. Let's go with the Mahalach that Dibra Trader Koloshan B'nei Adam. The word Zera is generally not used for people who speak Lashon HaKodesh. Doesn't matter if you speak Ivrit at all. In the Holy Tongue, the word Zera is not in reference to seeds of trees. And that's why the Torah uses the words Dafka and Parshas Kedoshim, that Loi Sizra, Sotcha Loi Sizra, because the Sizra is yes for grains, Sizra is yes for legumes, Sizra is yes for vegetables, and it doesn't apply to trees, to the seeds of trees. And that's the way it is. But over here, meeting in Hechsher Zeroim, and now we're quoting the pasuk in Parsha Shemini. Everyone knows this pasuk. We had the same pasuk before. What does the Torah says? Riba hakosov. Riba hakosov. The Torah included more than what's written. Why? By writing the word again and again. The Torah says al kol zera zeirua asher yizoreya. Like wow we. And really, the kasha is that 2 times zera is extra, not 1 time. The Torah kol zera. By the way, this pasuk is when it tells you that if the carcass of the Shemona Shratzim fell al kol zera that was not previously made wet, it remains starred. Al kol zera. Why al kol zera zeiru asher yizoreya? So they say ru asher yizoreya. I want you to know, not only does it include the seeds of trees and the fruits, therefore, really, because of the double zeiru asher yizoreya, it even includes meat, if you remember. Meat is b'chlal not something that's planted. The balachai, that even meat, you should know, can only become tamei if first it became muksher, with the big exception of kachin. Chibas kachin v'kachan. Remember that? Or the blood, the whole question was, is it the blood of the shechita? And by kachin, it doesn't have to be that one. Okay. Now, we're moving on. Daf samach zayin amud beis. We were speaking about the lav of maintaining kalayim. Maintaining kalayim generally is done by not taking an action. Now that you know that there is a mixture and you're not uprooting it, so then we learned once it adds a 200ths or more, it can become asur bahana, bekayim kalayim, Rosh Chodesh Adar mashmiyim ala kalayim, b'chulei. Rabbi Akiva holds yechayev malchus. There's lav she'ein by ma'isa, because since the lav, according to what we learned above, is from the same question of the word kalayim is extra. That in Parshas Kiseitze, it could have said le'sizra karmocha. Why does it say le'sizra karmocha kalayim? The extra kalayim there was to be makayim. Since it's in the same pasuk of not to plant, for planting, it's a lav sheyesh by ma'isa yechayev malchus. So Rabbi Akiva makes that hekesh. The Chachamim reject that, but the Gemara concluded before, just 2 daf ago, by us 2 daf, that even according to the Chachamim, if you did an action of maintaining, what would be the action? By covering over with earth, the Gemara said that explicitly, you'll be chayav malchus for mekayim. All of this is going to be rejected today. Not directly, but you'll see from the sugya that this question of what will happen if someone takes earth and they cover 2 foreign seeds, whether it's in a vineyard, whether it's not in a vineyard, what will happen? They'll be chayav malchus. Why? Because they promoted the growth. Included in the law of planting, of sowing, is covering with earth. Very different. Now the Gemara will bring the way that we understood it on Daf Samach Tes Amud Beis, and the Gemara is going to reject it. So let's begin. Says the Gemara, Omar Rabbi Yochanan, Shem Rabbi Yanai, Hamachapa b'kalayim loika, and that's how we are beginning. What's loika? This is so important. Look inside the last line in the Rashirilio just to make it clear, because when you learn the Gemara here without knowing what's coming, and since we learned Daf Samach Zayin Amud Beis, like you'll read it, they'll say, yeah, I know that already. You're like it because you were Mekayim Kalayim. It sounds like, and the Gemara said before, that's not only Rabbi Akiva, right? That's how we learned on Daf Samach Zayin Amud Beis that the Baraisa is not just Rabbi Akiva. Look inside the last Rashidil. You're like Mishum Zoireya. He didn't make that up. I mean, he knows it because he got ahead of a few lines. So this is a chiddush. No, we're going against what we learned above. You know, sometimes in the Babli, they would maybe put it closer together. You have to know the seder of why they put it here. Because this is, in other words, we learned one opinion before, let's put it together. If you put earth on 2 seeds, your malchus, because you are being mekayim, dafka not. No, that b'shem Rabbi Yanai, Rabbi Yochanan, b'shem Rabbi Yanai, mechabet chaim loikin b'shum zoireya. You didn't sow, you didn't plant, doesn't matter. When the Torah says don't leisizra, it doesn't mean putting it in the ground. It means doing anything that promotes the growth. That's part of sowing. Now that was a big chiddush. Rabbi Yanai had a tradition. He heard that. And Rabbi Yochanan, when he quoted Rabbi Yanai, he brought a proof to Rabbi Yanai, and Rabbi Yanai was very happy with it. Because he knew what he's saying without a raya, you know, it can be challenged. That's the Daf Samach Tes Amud Beis. So Amalei Rabbi Yochanan.
Rabbi,
yes.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, we're just determining whether it would be considered sowing versus maintaining.
So don't even think about maintaining, Danny. I brought up maintaining because when you learn this, unless you forgot Daf Samach Zayin, it's like, what are you talking about? We know that already. Yeah, I'm adding that. First of all, we're going to have that in the Gemara soon. But for people who remember Daf Samach Zayin, you have to understand right away, we're not learning what we learned above. We're going against what we learned above. Let me go above. There was a Braisa that spoke about Malchus for being Mekayim. And the Gemara said that is the Braisa only Rabbi Akiva. In other words, we found out from the Gemara that Rabbi Akiva somewhere says that from a Kayim Kalayim Yechayev Malchus, which means only Rabbi Akiva holds that, which means the Chachamim hold you're not allowed to be Makayim Kalayim. And it's going to become Osir Bahana, Mekadesh, but there's no Malchus. And then the Gemara suggested, no, that really everyone agrees in theory that the lav of Loisizra Karmachot Kaloyim includes Mekayim. It's a lav. Why do the Chachamim hold you're not Chayiv Malchus? Because it's a lav she'ein by Maisa. And therefore, if you'll do a Maisa, even the Chachamim will be Maida, you'll be Chayiv Malchus for Mekayim. That's what we learned. Now we are rejecting it. Say Malchus, but actually it's not the same Malchus, because to get Malchus, you have to have a Hasra, and the person who's Master has to quote the verse. So B'Shem Rabbi Yanai, before someone is planning to cover 2 seeds with earth, for him to be Chayiv Malchus, the warner has to tell him, it says Loisizra. Okay. Now, you can ask, it's not the Metzias, you're not planting, you're just covering. So Amalei Rabbi Yechanan, Valav Masni Sahid, perfect. I have a Mishnah to back you up. And you'll see the chap of Rabbi Yechanan. Now, the Mishnah that he's quoting is in Makkas. In Bavli, it's Makkas Daf Chaf Aleph Amid Beis. And I would like, before we continue reading in the Gemara, look inside, let's say, the Talpnei Moshe, just to know what the Mishnah says. So, Valav Masni Sahid, it's the second Pnei Moshe on the top line. The Peruk Elu Hein Loikim. So he's already quoting the Yerushalmi. How do you know it's the Yerushalmi? Remember, whenever there's a daf, it's the Babu. Daf in Yerushalmi is something that our generation is introducing. Whenever you quote a Yerushalmi, you go Perek Halacha. And there is Yerushalmi Makkas. So why would the Pnei Moshe go to Babu? So Yerushalmi Makkas, Perek Gimel Mishnah Tes. The Tanin on Sham, the Mishnah opens up that Yesh Chodesh Telamachas, that there's a possibility that a person is going to plow one furrow. Means one plow, one maisa, and it'll be chayiv 8 lavin. What was the case? The Mishnah gives the case. So number one is, who was schlepping the plow? Shoyer v'chamoyer. Now, guys, I want to count. Shoyer v'chamoyer is leisachresh b'shoyer v'chamoyer Yaakov. It's 1 lav. Then the Mishnah says vehein mukdashin. Vehein mukdashin is not 1 more; it's 2 more. So if let's just say if the shoyer is a bechor and you're not allowed to benefit from it, it's a lav. If the chamoyer is a petach chamoyer, we're going according to the opinions that the petach chamoyer right before you redeemed it on the seh, it's asur bahana. So you're chai, so that's 2. So in other words, it's 3. It's not your own chapter 8. The plowing shor chamoyer is 1. Both of them are mukdashim, so you're violating using the shoyd, the bechor shoyd, and you're violating using the petach hamoed. Ubi kalayim, you plowed on a telem that has kalayim. Now that's the whole kasha. The Torah doesn't say not to plow kalayim. The Torah says not to sow kalayim. That will be his right. Kalayim happens to be on the Shemitah year. And this is a Hagdama to next Masechta Shvi'is, and we'll see. Today's daf will end, and tomorrow, God willing, we'll begin with Dinam of Shemitah. Only problem is, the Torah never says by Shemitah, don't plow. It doesn't say that. Like I told you. The Torah says rest. In Mitzvahs Asay, it says rest. I know that plowing is not resting, but to be Chayiv Malchus, you have to be over on a lav. By Shvi'is, the Torah just said, Loi Sizra and Loi Sizmoy. We're going to get to that soon, but let's go Shemitah. Now, it's Yom Tiv. Not Shabbos. Very important, guys. Shabbos, if you violate the malachas of Shabbos, since it's a lav sheyesh by skila, right? So either you're going to get skila, God forbid, but normally chayiv means chayiv malchus, chatos because you did it the shoygig. You don't get malchus. On a lav for which potentially you can get killed, you never get malchus. So same idea. It's a lav tes malachas on Yom Tov. On Yom Tov, that you don't get skila, you get malchus. And now we're missing 2. So the other 2 will be that the plower is both a kohen and a nazir, and the plowing took place bebeis hatuma. So since a kohen and a nazir are not allowed to be there, so their being in a cemetery is these 2 other lavim. And the whole problem we had in the Masechta Makkas Bavli was they don't fit, right? Why don't they fit? Because the Gemara says, I can give you a 9th. What will be the 9th? That he was wearing shatnez. So the Gemara says, yeah, but wearing shatnez is not, you're not chayiv malchus because of the act of plowing. And the kasha is that being a kohen bebeis hatuma, you'll be chayiv malchus even if you didn't plow. That was okay. That I remember from the Bobby, but now let's leave it on the side. We're just going to focus. Why are you chayiv malchus for kilayim? Let's read in the Gemara now. Kilayim b'kerem. Okay, there was kilayim in this telem. Someone previously planted kilayim. Eich efsher kilayim al dei charisha. If nothing was planted in the ground, if you have a furrow that you are plowing, how is that kilayim? If there are no seeds, must be that the case of the Mishnah Makis is that there were 2 seeds in the ground. Okay, but they're planted already. If the law of planting is to put them in the ground, they are already in the ground. That's Rabbi Yochanan's chap. Must be that you're right, that the law, when God says loy sizra, he wasn't only referring to putting 2 seeds in the ground. Hashem was referring to a case the seeds are in the ground. If you're doing an action that promotes its growth, which would also mean covering the seeds with more earth, then you're violating the law of loy sizra. Is loy b'machapeh? Is anayah, again, that covering is included in planting. Now, Rabbi Yanai was so happy with this that he quoted many psukim. Now, you have to understand why he needed all these psukim to praise the greatness of Rabbi Yochanan. V'hava Rabbi Yanai mekalisle. Again, this is the biggest Haggadah that we get in Yerushalmi. And he began to praise them. First, he quoted the pasuk in Yeshayahu. In the pasuk there, it's amazing, the Chachma of Rabbi Yanai, because he's quoting a verse that's speaking derogatorily of idolaters who squander their gold by making idols out of them. Like, who would use their gold for such a chaval? God gave you gold, and you have such, it's who does it? People that have such an abundance of gold that they squander it in the negative. He used it in the positive. That Torah's gold, and Rabbi Yochanan was so overflowing with gold, with Torah, that he chapped from a Mishnah Makis arayah to the din here in Kalai. What's the pasuk there? Hazolim zohav mikis. If you have a Torah or Yerushalmi, you can read the whole pasuk. Hazol, it's a pasuk in Yeshayahu. Hazolim zohav mikis. The kesev bakona yishkoilu and yiskiru. Soidev the yaseu v'goymer v'goymer. Those who pour gold from a purse, that he's so abundant in his Torah learning. That's the first pasuk. The next pasuk that he quoted on Rabbi Yochanan, pasuk in Mishlei, where it says, "B'ni, my son, al yaluzu me'einecha." Don't even remove the Torah from your eyes, because not everyone is gifted with the greatest memory. But when it comes to Torah, if you make the effort to learn every day, if your eyes are constantly on the Torah will look at you. You look at it to look at you. Will stay together. Only someone that has that level of hasmada is blessed to remember the whole Torah Shabbat Peh. So when he hears a din that chidush by kalayim, he remembers from Makkos. Rabbi Yochanan never removed the Torah from his eyes. Then you have another pasuk in Mishnah. Ten l'chacham v'yachkamoid. Ten l'chacham v'yachkamoid is because the Mishnah in Makkos doesn't explicitly say what we just said. You're going to have a big challenge. The challenge will be exactly from what we learned on Daf Samach Zayin. How do you know that the lav is from planting? Maybe the lav is from Mekayim. That will be the whole problem then. Now we're going to bring the Daf Samach Zayin. And the Gemara is going to show you how he knew it. But for that, you have to tell a chacham v'yachkamoid. He needed them. It's really the proof that we said is insufficient. There was more.
But if it's Mekayim, then it would only be according to Rabbi Kiva. That's what we're saying. Well,
no, even according to the chacham and the way we learned above, but we b'chlal reject that over here. Very good, Danny. But it won't be a right to Rabbi Yanai. We're going to get there. So there's another chachma here. Then he quoted another pasuk that Yishma chacham v'yosef lekach. Now, when a wise man hears, he increases his learning. What does that mean? I think that Gavaldi. When people know, you know what the problem of knowing is? Once you know, you're not going to learn anything new. You know, Deveshain. How many of us hear something and we, in our minds, I know that, and you're missing? Only someone who has the humility of knowing and still knowing that they don't know are able to increase in their knowing. And all of these qualities were needed by Rabbi Yochanan to be able to make that association. So Rabbi Yochanan is getting praised. Who steps in here? His brother-in-law. Not only did he not praise him, he says, Yeraya b'chal nishkanayim. Oh, Reb Shimon Lakish. That was the greatness of Reish Lakish. That's why when we have, what was that, Bava Metzia, right? After he passed away, because of the Kpeda of Rabbi Yochanan, and the anguish that Rabbi Yochanan had, that he doesn't want to tie in the Messiah late. He wants someone to challenge. That's a challenge. In other words, when you say one opinion in the yeshiva and someone else challenges you, that's one level of a challenge. When you say something and someone is heaping praises on you, he's quoting 4 psukim to say how great you are, And now for someone to come and say, the whole thing is nish, I think that's much deeper. After all these phrases, I reject the whole thing. Why? Because here you go then. Now, what's amazing is that the svara that we had on Daf Samach Zayin, that even the Chachamim are moidem, that if you do Mekayim with a Maisa, you'll be Chayiv Malkus, is not even Oila al Shulchan Malachim here. That for sure not. Why? I don't know. It's amazing how, in other words, many more words could be written, but I'm giving the words. Not if anything, we know that there was a logic from other Amoraim and Daf Samach Zayin that only the Rabbi Akiva are Yechayiv Malkus for Mekayim, not the Chachamim. So maybe the Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Akiva. The Rabbi Akiva Amar, and we quoted the Sabrais above, HaMekayim Oiver Belois Aseh. Oiver Belois means Yechayiv Malkus. Now, I just want to remind, who said above that even the Chachamim would be moided? Even the Chachamim would be moided, that if you do a Maisa of Mekayim, the Chachamim agree with Rabbi Akiva. Just to know, that was Rabbi Yana. Okay. So you see that we are rejecting the whole Rabbi Yana. So now the Gemara is going to back up Rabbi Yochanan. And I think the backing up Rabbi Yochanan is the reason why he said, Telo Chacham v'yachkamoy, and Yishma Chacham v'yosef lekach, because there's more. You need more to bring the raya. Rabbi Yochanan knew of this possibility. And what is that? Here's the Gemara is explaining why Rabbi Yochanan's association is correct. Because Klum Amar Rabbi Akiva El Lavor Shema Lilkois V'Hacha Lilkois Anan Kaimin. So one way of learning is that the Mishnah will never paskin like Rabbi Akiva. Why will the Mishnah never paskin like Rabbi Akiva? Because why would we go against the Chachamim? Even though the Chachamim hold that you're not allowed to be Mekayim, we all know you're not allowed to be Mekayim. Midoy Raisa. Everyone holds that if you're Mekayim, Kalayim, at some point it becomes Mekadesh. That means it's also biblically, but you're not going to be Chayiv Malkus. So first of all, why would you say that the Mishnah Makkos goes only according to Rabbi Akiva when everyone else argues with him? The whole Mishnah is that the Yesh Chodesh B'Telem Echaz V'Chayiv Olam. Chayiv means Chayiv 8 Malkus, not just being Oivet. Now, you can ask, hold on, why don't we go with Rabbi Yanai? Why don't we go with Rabbi Yanai? Really, that's being addressed with the next line. V'oi. And furthermore, again, I think one pasuk is Ten L'Chacham V'Yachkamoy, and the V'oi is, that's why he added Yishma Chacham V'Yosef. What's the other ayah? Min Hadod Taninon. What are the 8 cases? So we mentioned all of them. But after the Mishnah says Kalayim B'Kerem, that we are interpreting to mean there are already 2 seeds in the ground and you're now being chaydesh, so the act of plowing will cover the seeds with fresh earth. The next one is Shvius. That's the problem. That's really the raya. We speak about the Shemitah here. Let's say the Mishnah is Rabbi Akiva, or let's say that the Chachamim agree with Rabbi Akiva that when it's a lav sheyesh by Maisa, you're chayiv malchus. Guys, to Mekayim is only by Kalayim. There is no malchus to be Mekayim produce of the Shemitah year. There is no such a thing to be Chayiv Malkus. Islach Meimar Shvius the Rabbi Akiva. There is no prohibition Mekayim on the Shemitah year, even la Rabbi Akiva. That's the ultimate refutation of Reish Lakish, which is Gavaldik. What is usher on the Shemitah year? Plowing. We're going to challenge that in a moment. Plowing is usher. So now you have to put many things together. Since the Mishnah says Kilei Kalayim B'Kerem and Bashviz, just like to be Chayiv Malkis by Shviz, it doesn't go with Mekayim. The lav would be not to plant. So then when the Mishnah says, so let's bring it straight from Kalayim. How are you planting? By covering with earth. You're not planting. Is araya that the definition of planting isn't only placing 2 seeds in the ground. The definition of planting is doing an action that promotes the growth, even if they were already placed in the ground. So if that's the case, the same thing is Kalayim B'Kerem.
I'm sorry. Why can't we say it means Mekayim as opposed to planting?
Because Danny, by the Shemitah year, there is no love of being Mekayim.
Of being Mekayim Kalayim?
No, Shemitah. No,
so
Shemitah.
What? No, but the act of he's plowing, and he's doing two things at once. He's plowing on Shemitah.
There is no Isser to plow in the
Also-
Shemitah year. There's no Isser to plow in the Shemitah year. To be Chayv Malkis. That's what we're going to learn in a moment.
You're saying the only way you're Chayav Malkus on Shemitah is through Dafka planting.
Yes.
Got it.
Now that will be challenged now. Okay, now you'll get the whole, now you're going to get the whole Hemshech HaDvarim. Now we're going to quote a machlokes between Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yochanan regarding what we just mentioned. No, it's the whole proof to back up Rabbi Yochanan against Reish Lakish is that on the Shemitah year, there is no lav on plowing, because if there is a lav of plowing on the Shemitah year, then whatever Danny was saying is correct. Shemitah, you're chayiv for plowing. The Kilei HaKerem could be for Mekayim. That's the next topic. Now you get the next case. Says the Gemara that but Rabbi Yochanan is not right. This is now going back to Reish Lakish. That we could argue Pasar Allah Shvius the Rabbi Lazar Omer loikin al dechadisha b'Shvius. The whole proof of Rabbi Yochanan is based on the premise that plowing cannot be plowing. There's no sort of plowing. It must be planting. Azoi, Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas holds that you're chayiv malchus for plowing on the Shemitah year. Now, so how does Rabbi Yochanan have a proof? Because Rabbi Yochanan argued by Shemitah against Rabbi Lazar. So Rabbi Yochanan l'shit tasvay had a raya. All of that is just explaining why Rabbi Yanai was so blown away. Why didn't Rabbi Yanai know that? Why do you think Rabbi Yanai didn't know the Mishnah Makis? Rabbi Yanai wasn't certain, I think, regarding this question of Charisha b'Shmita. That's why he couldn't use the Mishnah as a proof. Rabbi Yochanan already argued out that we're going to begin learning. Let's see how far we can get. And Rabbi Yochanan Omar, befeirish, ein loikin aladei Charisha b'Shvitz. This is the whole sugya together. And since Rabbi Yochanan holds that Charisha b'Shmita is not liable to Malchus, so when the Mishnah Makis says that Yechayiv on Shmoyna Lavin and one of them is Shvius, it must be because of Zoireya. So that's the raya to Rabbi Yanai. Now the Gemara will begin to analyze what's the behind Rabbi Lazar and what's behind Rabbi Yochanan. Where do we get this? Based on what? Are you Chayiv Malchus on plowing on Shemitah? That's where we're going to begin, and we'll see how far we can get. So by the time the Rabbi Lazar, so he has a seder of a klal uprat. Just happens to be, guys, that the klal is a positive commandment. I'm saying this for a purpose, and the prat is a negative commandment. In Parshas Bahar, the Torah says the shaf saha'aretz Shabbos Lashem. And I want you to know that the shaf saha'aretz, which means the land should rest. Resting is God's way of saying in the positive, implying don't do anything on the land, which includes not to plow. But if you were to plow, technically you're not going to be chayiv malchus yet because there's no law. Violating a positive commandment does not bring upon malchus. So from the shaf saha'aretz Shabbos Lashem, that excludes any type of work. It's a very general mitzvah saseh, but then the Torah says two details only. Sot chaloi sizra, this is a Parshas Bahar, that your field you cannot sow, you cannot plant, and your vineyard you cannot prune. That's a prat. Klal prat. So says Rabbi Lazar, hazera v'hazemer v'chlal hoyu. Why did the Torah have to specify them? Lahakish aleim v'loy melacha. Guys, this is Beloshen Habavli Klal Ches. Kol Davar Shahoya B'Chlol. The Yotzim Min HaKlol Lilami. They were already included because planting is not resting and pruning is not letting it rest. Why did the Torah specify these two? Not only to teach you a unique din regarding those two. Ella Lilamed Al HaKlal Kula Yotzim. That's the Klal over here. Let me look. Ma'aseh V'Zema, which is Meyuchad. Sheheim Avoida Ba'aretz. And or ba'ilan and or kol davar shu avoida ba'aretz uba'ilan is included in the law of don't do it. In other words, God is giving you the positive has within it a real law. The Torah didn't specify charisha, doesn't matter. The Torah didn't specify. The Torah gave you two exceptions to teach you, like I just mentioned, kol davar shebechol. It's not just to give you a law for Tizra and Sizmoy. No, any malacha in the land is included in the law. So that's the law of Rabbi Lazar. So Ma of Rabbi Yochanan. So he says, no, dafka not. That's the words in the Bible. Here it says, turning to Daf Samach Tes on the top. I'll do this b'kitzur, and maybe we'll pick it up. I'll just repeat this tomorrow. The source of these words of cholkin, love, to be cholik, is by the Melech Shabbos. If you remember in Parshas Vayakel in the beginning, the Torah says, and the question is, why did the Torah have to be machalik? Why did the Torah have to specify when it's already included in the Lamates Malachis? And the answer for that is we have really a machloikas Tanoim how to learn it, but we're going with lav l'chalik yotza. What's lav l'chalik yotza? What were to happen if someone b'shoigig behelamachas violated all of the Lamates Malachis? I would have thought you violated one lav loisasa malach, only one chatas. By there it's chatas. Here it's malchus. Here it's chatas. Since the Torah specified, don't make fire. That means if you made fire just for making fire, that is where you say, every single of the Lamates Malachas, if you violated, its own. I know there's Helam Shabbos, Helam Malach, I'm not getting into that, but there is a concept of lachalik, that every Lamed, every one of the Lamates is separated. You know why that works? Because God only gave you one example. Here, the problem is, if Hashem wanted to tell you that everything that's included in the Klal Asay, which is Shaf Saharat Shabbos Lashem, every single malacha, if you do in the land or in the trees, your Chayiv Malkis, Hashem Dafka only would have given one example. Hashem would have said that on the Shemitah year, one. Why does God say two? If one is specifying that not only is it an asay, it's also a lav, and it's lalamed ala klal kuliyatza. Why did God have to write, don't prune, write, don't sow? So it's the opposite. Whenever Hashem does something two times, it's to tell you only these two, and not anything else. We're speaking about Chiyuv Malkos. We're going to stop over here, and we're going to continue, God willing, tomorrow on Slate.